time for the first of 3 races today. Busy day for the Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup Championship.
But not while he's live.
So, cars are making their way onto the grid. A familiar sight on pole position, it looks like, which is Nick Grindrod, who's been pretty dominant so far at the front of the field. But as they form up on the first few rows, let's see if we can get the grid for our first race of the weekend here for the Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup Championship. So, who else on pole position but, of course, Nick Grindrod. He starts on pole alongside him. This time is Duncan Stone, his teammate for an all-team front row. Then it's the Blisses are back, thankfully, after they missed Donington Park. Stuart Bliss qualifying ahead of Richard Bliss on the second row of the grid. Then it's Liam Browning in 5th position, who is the top novice racer in the field in the points, alongside Steve Laidlaw. Then it should be Ben Norfolk instead of William Burgess. So there's been a last-minute change. Ben Norfolk is now in the number 69 car, and he starts alongside Samuel Laidlaw, who's 8th on the grid. Rounding out the top 10 is Ross McCullough, the prominent MG racer. Alongside him is Andrew Dyer, who's locked in that battle for the novice racer title with Liam Browning. Then it's John Booth and Adam Reeves on the 6th row of the grid from Elliot Lettis and Tim Evans. And then Christopher McKenzie and Daniel Selleck round out the 8th row of the grid. Going up towards the rest of the top 20, Paul Savage and John Nicholson come next from Craig Flynn and Brandon Savage. David Christie has made all the trip from Bonnie, Scotland, all the way down here to Snetterton in Norfolk to start 21st. He'll be alongside Alex Carter on the 11th row of the grid. And it's Adam Reynolds and Joe Graham in the Nankang Tyre sponsored car 24th. And then the last 2 cars at the grid are Craig Carter, Chris Hetherington, who makes his debut this weekend in a Toyota Aygo, and also Paul Vickers, who makes his first appearance in a Citroen C1. So that's the 27-car field. Last few cars are forming up at the back. So for those who haven't seen this championship before, brand new championship, which is having its first full season with the BRSEC in 2021. It debuted at the middle of last year, so it's just over a year old. And these are all the same cars underneath. They are, whether it's a Toyota Aygo, a Citroen C1, or a Peugeot 107, they're all made in the same factory originally, which means they all have the same mechanicals and underpinnings, just the body and bodywork and badges are a little bit different for the bumpers and headlights and everything else. These cars are then fitted with a specific CityCar Cup Championship kit, and then that kit then brings certain modifications, and from those you get such things you get gas shock suspension, you get Powerflex bushes, you have Nankang tyres on there as well, a specific roll cage, motor drive seats, and everything else in the mix as well. A hybrid tune ECU map for all the cars, so they keep the same horsepower, but they're all on the same map to keep it fair. And it makes these cars incredibly tight and incredibly close-knit when it comes to the racing. We've already had live stream action for these guys at Donington, so we caught them for their first race. They had a mega 38-car grid. We've got 27 here this weekend, because there were some that were choosing to do rounds between either this one or the rounds we had a couple of weeks ago at their second visit to Donington Park, where they very prestigiously won the support package for the British GT Championship, and were incredibly entertaining there for the 2 races that they had. But across all 6 races, as the cars head off for their formation lap for this first race of the weekend, the big question everyone's asking really is, who is going to stop Nick Grindrod from dominating this championship, and how are they going to do it? Because so far, Nick Grindrod quite literally has taken the maximum score possible from all 6 races so far, which is 306 points. That means he has taken pole position for every single race, he's led every single lap from pole position, he's won every single race, and he's taken the fastest lap from every single race. And that means you get 50 points for a win. You then get a point for fastest lap as well. So that's 51 points. 51 times 6 is 306. So everyone's going to be chasing him down. But the thing is, as the season's gone on, people have started to get closer and closer to him, even though his winning margins have still been quite substantial. So that's whether anyone can close him down anymore remains to be seen. Given the signalling qualifying, the fact that he was 1.1 seconds quicker than anyone else up there, in fact, looking at his qualifying pole position time, it was 2 minutes 37.511 compared to a 238.6. 1.1 seconds quicker suggests that if he keeps up that pace throughout the race, they're going to have a bit of an effort to try and catch up with him. When it comes to the battle for what we also have as a sub-contest in the novice trophy, that's for drivers who either last year or this year were racing for the first time and got their licence solely for the purpose of racing a CityCar Cup. They're in their own sub-contest in the same way that they count it in the BMW Compact Cup that we'll see later in the Masters. So essentially, wherever the novice drivers' places finish, that's where they'll be ranked 1st, 2nd and 3rd. So Liam Browning is currently the top novice racer class driver, and he's currently second in points, 258, 8 points ahead of the man third overall, which is Andrew Dyer, who's in a new car this weekend. He's in the process of setting his Trade Price Cars liveried one. He's got a brand new liveried car for this weekend, and newly built one he's just put together. So those two are now 8 points together and locked in combat for the title at the moment. The next driver on the novice racer list, third, is Daniel Selleck, ahead of then Elliot Lettis and John Nicholson. So that's the top five. But in terms of where they place overall, as we say, Liam Browning second, Andrew Dyer is third. And then in terms of overall positions, you have to then go down to 9th place overall for Daniel Selleck and 10th Elliot Lettis. Elliot has had a podium so far this year. He took one at Donington Park on the Grand Prix circuit last time. But also we've seen podiums overall for Liam Browning and Andrew Dyer. So some very consistent driving from Liam. He's been pretty decent so far throughout this season. But they do make a fantastic sight on the circuit. There's David Christie's car, of course, the Scottish commentator and media personnel who travels all the way from his homeland in Scotland all the way down to the circuits. He's fantastic effort he's put in. And it's great we've got him in the championship, and his bright yellow Peugeot 107. A striking livery on that as well, and great that he's made the effort to come down here and get involved. So the Viking Van Breakers duo of Nick Grindrod and Duncan Stone lead the way around. It's good to have also the Blisses back, because one of them had to miss the rounds at Donington Park for, unfortunately, the thing we can't talk about really, which begins with C, unfortunately. But thankfully they're both better, or at least one of them who had it is better, and so they're both back on the grid now. And that Auto Bliss team has got quite a few cars in the field, about 4 or 5, so to speak. So they do run quite a few, and they're all Toyota Aigos. And that's the quite nice thing about the CityCar Cup, is that whilst the Citroen C1 is at the 3 brands arguably the most prominent that you see on racetracks this year in other championships elsewhere, it's nice that this championship has also opened it up for drivers not to just pick Citroen C1s, but also they're picking up Peugeots and Toyotas to fill the grid with all 3 brands. So it's nice to see some Peugeots and Toyotas on the grid, and there are more and more that keep coming as the season goes on. So let's just look at some of the other drivers in the top 10. Duncan Stone, who starts on the front row of the grid, is 4th in points. He's actually tied at the moment with Andrew Dyer for 3rd position. Then it's Tony Trotter, who is not here this weekend. He's back in 5th. Nor is William Burgess in 6th. So that means that he will lose some points going back. But as we say, William Burgess's car has now been taken over by Ben Norfolk for the rest of the season. And that car was originally built by the guys at Bad Obsession Motorsports, which was Nick and Richard, if I'm correct. They raced it last year, took a victory when they were running with the Club Sport Trophy. They won the CityCar Cup class of that race at Silverstone with some brilliant strategy under the safety car, and that's the car there. Do you see the sort of WRC style liveried car in the field? That's it there, so watch out for Ben Norfolk from towards the rear of the grid. And then the rest of the top 10, we've got Tim Evans, who's back out in his red Toyota Aygo, and then we've got Daniel Selleck in his Toyota Aygo, and Elliot Lettis in his silver Peugeot 107. But the Blisses, meanwhile, have got to try and put some time up. They are currently backed out at the moment in 14th place for Richard Bliss, and then outside the top 20 for Stuart Bliss by the looks of things. So I'm going to try and find him on the points table. Let's have a look for a second here. Where is he? Yes, he's quite far down actually, because he was excluded from the second race at Donington Park. He's quite the way down outside the top 20. So quite a bit of work to do. But they should be all set to go in a few moments' time. So, Nick Grindrod is the red C1 on the left-hand side with the yellow trim. On the right-hand side, the red car with the big electrical logo on the front, but on the bonnet is Duncan Stone. Watch for the Auto Bliss pair behind the grey and orange cars of Stuart and Richard Bliss. Liam Browning's the grey and green car at the back. In third, alongside him, it should be quite a battle. So, all set for action at Snetterton then. Race number 1 of the weekend and of the day for the Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup on their first visit to Snetterton. 27 cars all set to go. Lights out, and we're racing in Norfolk for the first time today. Decent start from the middle of the pack from Tim Evans as he shoots the gap of the road before them. And they're 4 wide behind them at the back of the field as they head down towards Ritchie's for the first time. So, Nick Grindrod then, as has been his customary place at the head of the field, leads them into Ritchie's. Duncan Stone in second place. The Auto Bliss pair of the Bliss brothers are in there in third and fourth. They're still 3 wide, about 3 or 4 deep behind as they turn their way through. And whilst that might have been the most powerful cars out there, they certainly should be the biggest fun. Oh, and there's a little bit of a tap in the rear of Stuart or Richard. In fact, 2 taps, in fact, from Liam Browning. I'm not quite sure that whichever Bliss that was. I think it was number 18. So that Bliss is, in fact, out of the 2 of them, that would have been Stuart Bliss. Getting a little bit of a bump in the rear there from Liam Browning under brakes. Not sure if he misjudged it or not, but out of the Wilson hairpin, they're going through Palmer's for the first time. And now onto the short back straight, which takes him towards Agostini on this 300 circuit layout. Of course, it's been around since around about 2010, 2011, and it's extended the circuit from what was simply the outer circuit, what's known as the 200 circuit. Now, it's now been reduced down, it's been extended to become one of the longest circuits in the country. So great to have a nice technical section to add to the long straights here, which should hopefully give us some NASCAR-style drafting, although in the case of Liam Browning, that was more bump drafting than drafting down towards the hairpin. So the teammates at the front of the field, Liam Browning and Duncan Stone, already trying to pull away here as they come up towards the right-handers at Oggies, and then through Williams now onto the Bentley straight for the very first time. And everyone appears, fingers crossed, to have got through pretty much trouble-free. They're all turning their way out of the first few right-handers. There's Tim Evans ahead of another one of the Auto Bliss cars in the field. There's another one there, one of the orange cars in there. And also just behind him I saw was David Christie as they turned their way up through the right-hander. So down the back straight they go for the first time. Let's see who can get a tow from who as they come up towards the Brundon-Nelson complex. And it is still, surprise, surprise, Nick Grindrod who leads. But this is interesting. They're not being allowed to get away this time. And I wonder if the slipstream is having an effect here to help these guys out, because it certainly looks as though it's working quite well. So top six are in a mix together. We're seeing here that's the 31 of Adam Reynolds who's having a scrap with Alex Carter. As Carter in the black Citroen C1 there. And he's just behind him is Joe Graham and the Nankang Tyre livery Toyota Aygo. So they make their way out of Brundon-Nelson. In fact, up the inside for second place, the Blisses are on the move. So that's now Duncan Stone losing one place to, that will be Richard Bliss. And Stewart's going to get involved as well. But Duncan Stone's over the curb. He thumps the inside sausage curb at Murray's. And I said it was going to be quite a battle, wasn't it? Particularly down these straights. But the thing is, all this battling is only allowing the championship leader, Nick Grindrod, to once again run away with it. So they've got to be really careful here. Now, whether or not Duncan Stone's playing the block here in terms of allowing his teammate to get away whilst he holds everyone up, we'll have to wait and see. It's kind of like the endurance racing. One car sprints off in the lead, and the other one sort of sits back in the pack and tries to back everyone up to help them get the lead. So end of lap one then, it's Grindrod that leads the way. It's Duncan Stone in second place. It is then Richard Bliss in third, from Stuart Bliss in fourth position. Liam Browning is fifth. And then in sixth position, car number 100, which is Steve Laidlaw, who is, I think he's in a Peugeot 107, but it has a Citroen C1 front bumper. So it's, I'm not going to try and, I think it's a C107, I guess, in some cases. So that's a interesting bit of bodywork there. But I know he's been he's taken that car down to Martin Piccolo in the last couple of days to get that car sorted. So looks as though it's back on song. And then behind them we've got Andrew Dyer in his just there in the red and white, in the red and silver car, and he's actually in a Laidlaw sandwich because he has car 100 Steve in front of him and car 101 Sam behind him. So this lead group is starting to get a little bit bigger. But this is interesting here that Duncan Stone is trying to keep Nick Grindrod in touch, but it looks as though that so far, with the clear air in front of him, it's working out quite well for Nick. So they turn their way out through the left-hander, in through Hamilton's, into Oggies, which is an early apex and opens out on the exit all the way through. And then they make their way towards this right-hander at the Williams, takes them off the Bentley straight. I'm not quite sure why Richard Bliss has the windscreen wiper going. It's not raining and there's no moisture on the windscreen, unless he's got his windscreen washers on. But either way, he is continuing on to make sure he's got a clear screen to try and lock onto the back of Stuart Duncan Stone's car. And look at the way they're starting to bunch up in the slipstream in a pack here. We've seen that now the toe's been broken and Steve Laidlaw's not really been able to latch onto it. He's now under threat from Andrew Dyer. It's now allowing these four to almost inadvertently work together here, which is quite funny. So two Citroens who are sandwiched by... Oh, two Toyotas. There was an off in the background. I think it was Andrew Dyer. I saw a car that was sort of bouncing around in the background. I'm not sure if it hit the barriers or not, but it was just off at Brundon-Nelson, I think. So I think it was Andrew Dyer because it was a red flash that came through the shot. So whether he's got going again, we'll have to wait and see if he comes through. And if it does get going, how far down the order he goes. So, oh dear, yes, there he is, Andrew Dyer, and that's taken, goodness me, quite a heavy whack into the barriers. So hopefully Andrew's okay. You can see him moving around in the car. I'm sure the marshals will be on site, and I think that might even be a safety car, the first appearance of the RunYourFleet.com Jaguar XF Sport Brake safety car, I'd imagine, because that car, I'm afraid, is not going any further. Grindrod, meanwhile, continues to extend his advantage. Across the line he goes and takes 1.7 seconds. But on that lap, Duncan Stone was a couple of hundredths of a second quicker as Andrew Dyer takes a bit of a lie down because he might have been a little bit dazed by that incident. So hopefully he is okay. Out of Richie's for the third time. And on towards the Wilson hairpin. And still Grindrod has that lead of 1.7. So at least we know that Duncan Stone is able to keep pace. Now I can see that there's a yellow flag that's flying on the pit straight. Yes, indeed. There we go. Safety car has been deployed to no real surprise after that incident. And hopefully he's probably just taking a moment just to recompose himself after that, because it looked as though either he lost it. I'm not sure if he lost it on its own or if he did get a tag from, I think it was Sam Laidlaw he was battling with. That's not an accusation, of course. That's just speculation to what maybe could have happened. But I did just see Andrew's car just shoot off in the background, and it did look as though it did take a whack into the barrier, as you can see with the damage on the front end. So fingers crossed that not only is he okay, but the damage that he's got doesn't prevent him from taking part in any of the further 2 races today, because they have 3 races today and there's only around about a 2-hour turnaround between each one. So that's going to be a critical one to keep track of. So the safety car then manages to bunch everyone back up, but it means that Nick Grindrod doesn't have the big lead which he had before. So it means if he wants to try and build it up, he'll have to do so all over again to try and get himself that advantage. He's looking for his 7th win out of 7 races. And so far, as we said at the top of the race before it started, that so far he's been virtually unbeaten. He's taken pole position in every single race, led every single racing lap in the CityCar Cup, taken every race victory, and then on top of that, taken the fastest lap in each race as well. Now, if things stay as they are, Duncan Stone will have the fastest lap of the race. So he will take away that 100% perfect record. But then, of course, on the restart, if Duncan Stone can get close, he might well even start to challenge his teammate. But it depends on whether Duncan wants to play that card and start to actually battle with him, or if he realises that Nick is more in contention for the championship than he might be. That's a good sign. Andrew Dye actually helmet off, but he's also giving a wave to his fellow CityCar competitors. So it looks as though on the surface he's okay, but of course he will go to see the chief medical officer just for a precautionary checkup to make sure that he is okay. But that's not a great sight when that's a brand new car he's just put together, and that's not exactly how he wanted to look after its first few racing laps in his hands, which is a shame. There's Paul Vickers. Good to see him on the grid for the first time this year. Again, hasn't been present so far for the first 3 meetings, but he's managed to get his Ryson Tyre Centre sponsored Citroen onto the grid here at Snetterton, so that's great to have him in the field. And also Chris Hetherington, as we mentioned, who is in the Toyota Aygo, the car number 131, making his first appearance this weekend as well. So the runyourfleet.com Jaguar XF Sport Brake safety car will pick the cars up very shortly. And just a quick note, of course, on our valued partners at runyourfleet.com, of course, who you are helping supply that. There it is. There's the Jaguar safety car. Just a mention to Run Your Fleet, because they are the most cost-effective and flexible way to buy, lease and manage everything you need for your fleet of company vehicles through their managed fleet service, and they can handle breakdown cover, fleet management, risk management and fleet funding, telematics, rental and short lease options. They've got every solution for any kind of fleet requirements for any business. So if you do want to go and check them out, do be sure to do so on the website runyourfleet.com. If you head to their YouTube channel, they've got a nice little 2.5 minute explainer video which tells you everything you need to know about them and what they can do for you as well. And a big thank you to Run Your Fleet, not just for their support as partners of the club this year, but also for the supply of the Jaguar XF Sport Brake that runs as our safety car for this season. So the recovery teams, but the recovery crews, and also there's a medical car down there, again, just to check Andrew over as a precaution, down there to recover the car. And this will now be a good opportunity for everyone to, as I say, keep Nick Grindrod in check. Duncan Stone has had a podium this year, but I just need to double check exactly where he ended up on the podium. So we'll have a look here. As we say, he's currently comes into the weekend 4th in points. Now, he had a podium at Donington Park, and that was 2nd place behind his teammate. So if he stays where he is, it'll match his best result of the season so far, which will be quite handy for him if he can manage that. And in terms of the Bliss siblings, Richard Bliss so far has got a podium to his name, because he took a podium. If I bring the points table up on my screen, full screen, so I can look through it properly, it is Richard Bliss. Let's have a look. So he has taken one podium, which was 2nd place in the first race at Alton Park. Then he's also on top of that taken two fourth places, one at Donington Park in May and also in that second race at Alton Park as well. And of course, he and Stuart weren't present at the last round at Donington Park, which means that Richard has dropped down to, looks like, I think that's 13th in points, whereas because of the fact that Stuart Bliss was already on the back foot a little bit, having not just been unfortunately disqualified from the second race at Donington Park in the first weekend at Donington Park in May, but he also looks like he didn't finish the first race at Alton Park too. So whilst he's incredible, he's one of the fastest guys in the field. Just a combination of misfortune and bad luck have forced him way down in points, which is not exactly where he wanted to be. Safety car, which makes its way gently around. Good work by the recovery crew to put Andrew Dye's car already onto the back of the low loader. So hopefully they'll be able to get racing. I would imagine, hopefully, get racing back going again next time by. Not this time past the line, but next time. You need to keep tabs on the race time, though, as well, because these races are 20 minutes, and I think we've got about 8 minutes left. So under the safety car here, probably be another roughly 3 minutes, about 3 minutes or so behind the safety car. So by the time they get to the line, we'll probably have just under 5 minutes to get racing back underway, which would suggest to me that we probably will have at least another 2 laps of racing and another 2 laps for Nick Grindrod to try and hold on to this 100% winning record. But the fact that he's got a very quick teammate and 2 very feisty Auto Bliss Toyotas on his tail, plus the likes of Liam Browning and the Laidlaws, and what would have been Andrew Dye had he not gone off the road, I think he might have a bit of a tougher time this occasion. So it looks that they're starting to speed the pace up a little bit as they head down the pit straight. As we mentioned, we've got 3 races for the CityCar Cup today. This is the first, of course, for our first race of the timetable. And then we have the second race, which is coming up at roughly round about, it's the third race after lunch, roughly round about 25 past 2. And then it's the last race of the day here about 4:30 before we have a non-broadcast free practice session, not just for the Amok GT cars that are racing tomorrow, but also the Track Attack guys that also have 2 races here at Snetterton on tomorrow's timetable as well. Let's look at maybe who's moved up where from some of the starting positions and who appears to have made up some good progress. I did notice Tim Evans made a good start from where he was back on the 14th, on the 7th row of the grid. He's moved up to 8th, so he's up 6 places. Good start from Tim and his red and blue Toyota Aygo. Who else has made a decent getaway so far? It looks like I did also notice that the William Burgess originally entered car, which has Ben Norfolk at the wheel, that car started back towards the back of the grid. So that actually started back roughly. It should have started up in what looks to be 7th place, but it was more towards the rear for whatever reason. So it's a slightly different order on the grid than we had on our grid sheet, which is interesting. Another mover as well. Ross McCarr's had a bit of a backwards run so far. He started 9th, is down to 12th, so he's got some work to do to get back into the top 10 if he can. And any other movers as well. Adam Reeves has also lost a couple of spots. He started 12th, he's down to 14th. And also a couple of places lost 2 for John Booth, who started in 11th, is down to 13th place now. Elliot Lettuce has made a good bit of progress too, along with Tim Evans. He's just behind him now, so he started in 13th, and he's made up 4 places up to 9th. So good driving from Elliot, who we said took a podium at the last event at the Donington Park Grand Prix British GT support races. So making some nice progress, and it's a better progress than the season where it started. Where he probably won't thank me for reminding people that in qualifying he had an unfortunate mishap where he lost a wheel at Donington Park at the first round. So sorry about that, Elliot, but just for context, it's where his fortunes have gone since then. He's been able to get himself up towards the front. One thing I have to remark about this championship is that they do have some fantastic liveried cars. For those who've got more of a sort of more plainer sort of look, then that's obviously their personal preference. But for some of them who've gone all out with the liveries, it really is fantastic. You see the back of the grid there is Chris Hetherington's Toyota Aygo, with this rather, it's a base colour is silver. It's got quite striking sort of lime green decals all over it, which is fantastic. What also is fantastic is that the safety car lights are now out, which means that the Jaguar XF Sport Brake will head back to pit lane, and it means now that Nick Grindrod has to try and build this lead if he can all over again. But Duncan Stone has gone with him on the restart, and he either start to challenge him or simply sit behind him to make it a 1-2 for the team. Green flag is back in the air, and we're back racing at Snetterton for the Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup. We've got 4.5 minutes to go as they come back across the line. So it's a good restart for both of the Viking Van Breakers cars. Nick Grindrod and Duncan Stone. The two Auto Bliss Toyotas come next in 3rd and 4th. And it's Liam Browning 5th. The Laidlaws come next in 6th and 7th. So it's very much teammates or siblings in the field, with Liam Browning being a bit of the odd one out there. Then it's Tim Evans who comes next in 8th. It's Elliot Lettis 9th. And then Christopher McKenzie's making good progress up in 10th, one of his strongest runs. Big dive under brakes for the 17 of Richard Bliss. And Stewart's in there as well, just behind him for backup. So the Blisses aren't afraid to get their elbows out and make a dive if they need to, as they come down towards the left-hander at Wilson for the first time back under racing conditions. So I think in terms of time, we'll probably get this in at least one more lap. So how quick they can get it back around should be interesting. In fact, I think this probably will be the last lap going past it next time by. Here comes then Richard Bliss to make a move for 2nd place. Darts out to put himself into Duncan Stone's mirrors. But nothing doing at the moment as they come through Agostini. And still nose to tail. And Nick Grindr's not been allowed to get away too quickly. He's usually the class of the field, but as you can tell, since the opening rounds, the difference in gap is quite substantial. It's shrunken quite a lot compared to where he was at the beginning. In the pilot races last year, Nick Grindr was pretty well dominant. He won 2 of them, and didn't compete at the Silverstone race when they were part of the Club Sport Trophy, and he also didn't compete in the second race at Croft due to an engine issue. But that engine is still currently on song at the moment, as it has been all year, as Richard Bliss now starts to sail up onto the rear bumper of Duncan Stone. He's almost bump drafting him now, down towards Brundle and Nelson. Stewart latches onto his sibling Richard's toe, as also does Liam Browning in 5th position. This could be quite a battle pack forming here in these closing stages of this Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup race. Little scrap going on also between, looks like, I think that's Sam Laidlaw with Tim Evans and Elliot Lettis as well. But now into Brundle and Nelson. Closing back in goes Richard Bliss. He's really pushing as hard as he dares. I think, unless, touch wood, there is a mistake from Nick Grindrod, it might well be a 7th win of the season. But remember, the fastest lap of the race is held by Duncan Stone, who set it just before the safety car came out. So that 100% record might well be going for Nick Grindrod. Unless he can pull out quite a quick lap on the last lap here, it might well be that Duncan Stone steals a point away from him. Into the complex through Corwin into Murray's, this tight left-hander that takes him back onto the long drag up the pit straight. And Richard Bliss should be in a prime position here to line up Duncan Stone for a pass down towards Ritchie's for the final time. Cross the line they go with 1:50 on the clock. They should get the last lap board, and it will be one more time around for Nick Grindrod and co in this first CityCar Cup race. So there he is then, middle of the shot, the red and yellow machine that's got this one quite comfortably at the moment. The gap is 1.4 seconds, and as I suspected on the restart, he has taken the fastest lap of the race back again, 2 minutes 38.174. There's just no stopping him, is there? He's the former frontrunner in the pickup truck racing championship, as well as many other racing series, so he is definitely by far the most experienced driver on the grid. So in a way, it's not surprising that he's as fast as he is, but at the same time, it's good to see some of the other drivers who are finding their feet in city cars also keeping him fairly honest, which is good, which is the whole point, and it's really good to see. It might be a championship that's more focused towards the novice driver and the rookie driver starting out, but nothing to say that some of the more experienced hands can't jump in and try something new. So down the short straight out of Wilson towards Agostini for the final time. Richard Bliss is, I think he's biding his time here on this last lap. He hasn't really made any desperate lunges or dives, which is just shows that he's just waiting patiently for the right moment to come. And even if it doesn't, he can still say that he kept him pretty honest until the end. There's the car 100. That's Steve Laidlaw, or Laidlaw Senior. And so his son Samuel is a little bit further back in 7th place. Ross McCart's been a couple of spots I've noticed on the timing screen. He's up from 12th to 10th in the lap on the restart. And the one that's dropped a few spots actually is Adam Reynolds. He started that restart 17th. He's dropped to 20th. So a little bit of work to do on this last lap to see if he can claw back a couple more spots. Out through the right-hander of Williams onto the Bentley straight for the final time then. Nick Grindrod looks as though he's got this one relatively sewn up, but it's never over until they get to the checkered flag. And everyone else knows that. The race is never done until they cross the line. Richard Bliss is still just moving around. He's possibly trying to line up a move here into the complex if he can pull himself alongside. Either that, or we might have to set him up for a move. He's a little very sideways as he pushes incredibly hard at Brundle, tries to drift it through Nelson, carries the momentum, more speed on the exit. The corner, he's going to put himself alongside towards the bomb hole, side by side for second place. Richard Bliss has those up the inside. There's a little bit of a rub as they come through the right-hander, but Richard Bliss looks as though he might have just broken up the Viking Van Breaker's party. They're still rubbing wheels as they come up towards Coram. Now Stuart Bliss is involved, and Liam Browning. Got to be careful it doesn't end in tears. I hope it doesn't, but Nick Grindrod, meanwhile, comes through. They're still side by side for second place. Richard Bliss is now on the outside for the final corner at Murray's, unless Duncan Stone can't get it anchored up, but he can. He squeezed back through to get back past again. It'll be the run to the flag for second, third, fourth and fifth, but yet again, there just is no stopping Nick Grindrod. Once again, it is a perfect record once more. 7 out of 7 for Nick Grindrod. He wins the first CityCar Cup race of the day. And in a fantastic close finish, it's second, third, fourth and fifth, as close as you like, with Duncan Stone, the Blisses, Richard and Stewart, and then it's Liam Browning to round out the top 5. Top 5 covered by, well, the top second to fifth was covered by about 0.7 of a second. It was a great side-by-side finish there. That was between Flynn and Nicholson, and Andrew Flynn beat John Nicholson to 15th place by the massive margin of just 39 thousandths of a second. So great to see them going side-by-side, even at that late stage. But if that didn't wake you up, I'm not sure what will, because that was a brilliant race to get things underway for today's action here at this weekend's action here at Snetterton for the first of 3 races today for the Nankang Tyre CityCar Cup.